Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven. I am your host, as always. And joining me tonight is a very special guest, Miss Bridget Condon, who is covering the Chargers this year for NFL Network and doing a great job, might I add. So, Bridget, thanks for taking the time to join me tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I have listened to you guys a bunch of times. Those long drives from LA down to Costa Mesa. I listen to various podcasts and I love what you guys do. So I'm really excited to be a part of it tonight.
Well, I appreciate that. I did not know that until just now. So thank you so much. And that is quite a drive, especially for training camp, in the summer and traffic
Yep.
and all that good stuff.
It's fun. You get a lot of good phone calls in. I'm calling all my family members, get it all done. If I don't get it on the way there, on the way home.
Have you heard the Philip Rivers commute stories that have been pretty famously told?
No, I actually haven't.
So he stayed down in San Diego with his family after the team moved to Los Angeles, and him and Kellen Clemens, who was the backup quarterback at the time, was also living down there, and so they would commute every day up to Costa Mesa for practice, and he had this decked out SUV, and they would sit there and watch film, and so that's how they would pass the time every single day driving up to the practice facility.
Maybe I need to somehow incorporate a film session. I mean, I'm driving, so I don't know if that's the safest, but I need to take some pages out of his book.
It's all good. It's all good. So like I said, this is obviously, your first year covering the Chargers for NFL Network. So I did want to, take a little minute before we talk about the team specifically to jump in a little bit to your background and, allow our listeners and me as well to get to know you a little bit. So I've got my first question here. You went to James Madison. Chris Harry also went to James Madison.
Yes.
And Brandon Staley was at James Madison as a coach while you were there in college, I believe.
Yep.
So what's up with James Madison producing all these Chargers employees and reporters?
I actually was just talking to someone. I'm at the NFL Network building today upstairs who also randomly works on the social team, went to JMU. It's crazy because you hear of that school and so many people in California have no idea what it means when you say JMU. And somehow all of these people are connected. So it's been kind of fun. I actually, when I introduced myself to Brandon Staley, I think it was this summer or late in the spring, I was like, hey, by the way, I went to JMU, which I feel like, that was something that he remembers me for because it's such a random occurrence. And especially because he was there while I was a student. It's, really, it's a bigger school. That's the thing. It's just not a Power 5. And they did just move up to FBS this season. So good things coming for the Dukes. I love it. I mean, we always joke, like, if you could do it again, would you go to a Power 5 school? Or now that I'm in sports, it's kind of, I was in Raleigh before I came here, and that's the triangle with Duke and Carolina and NC State. And I never had that kind of college experience because JMU, was lower level. But I don't know. Now we're on the come up, so got to keep repping it.
Have you been back to visit since they made the change to FBS yet?
I have not. It was homecoming last week, and I was watching everyone like on Instagram and stuff, and I was so jealous. I want to get back there, but it's hard. It's a hard place to get to because it's like 2 hours from DC, an hour from Richmond. So they're like, you got to fly and drive. But my fiance is actually from Ashburn, Virginia. We met at JMU. So we're trying to figure out a way to like go back visit his family and maybe get to a game.
Yeah, it's a shame the homecoming weekend wasn't this weekend while the Chargers are on a bye week. But
would have been perfect.
You mentioned
the could have rode down there together.
Right, exactly. You guys could have carpooled on the plane or whatever, hop on the Spanos jet, I guess. You mentioned that experience in Raleigh. I've got to ask, obviously, I'm a big college basketball fan. I'm a big college football fan. Mac Brown, Coach K, Roy Williams, all in this same area. Do you have any cool stories from your time working there in Raleigh from those coaches?
So the sad thing about that is I think Duke and Carolina made it to a Final Four the 5 years before I got there. I was there for 4 seasons. Neither team made it. And then this last season, they both made it and played each other. So I don't know if it's me, if I'm the drama, but it was cool. It was so awesome to get that experience. And I covered breaking news when Coach K retired, when Roy Williams retired. So being there and seeing kind of the end of their careers was really something special. And I just think it taught me so much, right? Because it's such a college area. I did cover the Panthers and the Hurricanes, the NHL team,
Mm.
but when you're around guys like that that have such big reputations, big names, everybody knows who Coach K is. It really teaches you how to navigate that world, and I think that really prepared me for now being in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to hear that. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have. I don't know if you covered the Olympics, but the Redeem Team
Oh,
documentary came out on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched it
I
yet, but
haven't seen it yet, but I want to.
oh, it's so good. I mean, first of all, like the first thing that stands out is obviously the grown appreciation for Kobe, but Coach K is a star of that show as well. So it was a lot of fun to watch.
I know, and I know a lot of people have, he's kind of polarizing. Like some people really don't like him, especially if he went to Carolina. But I
Right.
loved working with him. And one thing that, meant so much to me about covering Duke is how much he gave back to the community. I remember one of my favorite stories I did. This kid, he was like a really good basketball player, I think as a freshman. He got a brain tumor. I'm blanking on his name, but it's a really cool story. They brought him to a game. He was in a wheelchair. They gave him a game ball. He always wanted to play at Duke and just kind of shared this experience. Was really awesome. And I just have to say, like Duke Carolina games, if you can ever go to one, you've gotta. There is nothing like sitting at Cameron Indoor, and where they have the media, it's the row is directly next to the court. So you're right
Yeah.
there. And I just remember that game when Zion, like his shoe blew out
Yeah, the
and
one where he like spun
Obama was
out. Yeah.
there. I remember shaking Obama's hand. Like it was just a crazy, you
Dang.
never knew who you were going to see at those games.
Man, that would have been, yeah, that year, especially because both of those teams were really good. I know they didn't make
So
Final
fun.
Fours, but
Yeah.
those teams were loaded with, I mean, they're always loaded with professional athletes, right? But that year in particular was a lot of fun.
So fun.
So obviously, we'll get to some Chargers talk now. Appreciate
I
the
know.
backstory.
Guess we're
Hopefully,
done college basketball. People are gonna be like, why did I tune into this
we're
Chargers
only
podcast?
we're only a couple months away from tip off. Actually, I feel like it's a
Let's
couple
go.
weeks away. NBA
Yeah.
season's already started. It's super weird for me, but it is what it is. Um, so first things first with the Chargers here, what's your experience been like, shifting from you've been on the East Coast for most of your life, you come out to California. What's the first year of covering the Chargers been like for you?
It's been awesome. There's definitely an adjustment from, like I mentioned, in North Carolina, and before that, I worked in Virginia. You're covering multiple different teams, multiple different sports. So now I'm covering one sport, one league, and primarily the Chargers. I am doing a couple other games here and there, but you're just learning the ins and outs. I think I know more about this team than I've ever known about a specific team because I'm around them so much, right? Like we used to pop in and out of teams before, but now you're there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're there at the games. You're on the availabilities. You're getting to know these players, these coaches as people and kind of figuring out how they move. It's been good though. I'm really excited for the opportunity to get to cover a team. I think nobody could have predicted what has happened this season. And I was actually writing something today and someone said, describe the season in one word. And that's exactly what I said, unpredictable. Because I remember at training camp, we did a live practice when they were with the Cowboys. And I just was going down the list of the defense and how stacked it was. And I was like, this is going to be the year. This is so fun. And I know that there's like this Chargers curse, right? I don't like know that much about it because this is my first year. And so when people tried to tell me like, no, there's this Chargers curse, I'm like, what does that mean? And now I'm like, is this it? Like, I don't know. I know this is like a touchy subject.
No, it's. I mean, I've been a Chargers fan my whole life. I personally don't believe in curses. I believe teams make
Right.
their own luck, right? I mean, we've had some glimpses here and there of Chargers team who have come really close to making that Super Bowl push. But I was going to ask you, like, are you as tired of talking about injuries as we are? Because it feels like every single episode we spend like the first 15 minutes talking about like, oh, what do they do without Joshua Kelly this week? What do they do without Joey Bosa this week?
Yep.
And then, this week we get JC Jackson, Mike Williams, Chris Rumph, all dealing with major injuries. So what has that process been like for you in talking about all of these injuries every single week?
I feel bad for Brandon Staley because every press conference starts with, it had been, is Keenan Allen playing? Like, what's the latest with Keenan Allen? What's the latest with
Yeah.
this injury and this injury? And he has a little paper up there at the podium, and he has to like read through it because there's so many. And I actually asked him, he didn't really address the question, but yesterday in the media availability, I was like, have you ever been a part of a team with this many injuries? Because yes, it's the NFL, right? We understand that somebody is bound to get hurt, but the amount of starting players that they have hurt right
Yeah.
now, it seems so insane to me when you look at it. And I don't think, it's not like they're losing these games or like these players are getting hurt by choice or something they're doing wrong. I think it's just been these freak accidents. Like the JC Jackson one was so, it was just a freak accident.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, Rashawn Slater too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of hate for turf right now. I don't know if you've been
Yep.
paying attention around it, but
Yeah.
these things, it's just, that's why me personally, I don't buy into that. I mean, Anthony Lynn before Brandon Staley, he was super old school with like how he would go about like training and practices and things like that. And Brandon Staley has invested a lot in sports performance stuff, and
Yeah.
last year really paid off. Last year they were very, very healthy, and then this year it's just like every single domino effect has fallen. So I can't remember if it was you or somebody else who asked Derwin about like just kind of the vibe around this team with all of these injuries. And Derwin seemed pretty upbeat still, but what's kind of been your observation, watching this team as they've been dealing with all of these injuries every single week?
Well, I think it's, the first week when, or I guess week 2 against Kansas City when Justin Herbert gets hurt. It's like, okay, wow, this is our starting quarterback. And, he's hurt. What's happening? And it's this positive momentum, right? But then if you're getting hit week in and week out with new players, I imagine as a player, it's difficult to continue to think positively. Of course, they're going to tell us that, next man up mentality. We believe in the guys, on the bench, but I imagine it's just the inconsistency, right? These are the ones all work together. They have this cohesiveness. They get to know each other. And if you don't have that with, if it's not even just week 2, you have the backup in there, you're starting to build some chemistry. Well, then that guy goes down and you're week in and week out, especially with the offensive line. Like, I think that's a big issue for this run game is because you can't find any consistency. And so I think it definitely takes a toll. Again, I don't think an NFL player is going to come out here and say that because, they're trained better than that.
There's coach speak and there's player speak for a reason. You mentioned the offensive line too, the wide receiver room, which is really getting, a lot of buzz on social media.
Yeah.
And Daniel Popper pointed this out that, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, and Mike Williams only played, I think, like 12 snaps together this
13,
season.
yeah.
So, Brandon Staley was asked about the trade deadline coming up. Of course, we're a week away from this.
Yep.
They've kind of next man up mentality, right? Practice squad guys, Michael Bandy, Jason Moore. Do you buy into any kind of potential trade talks for this team as they try and maybe, make a late season push around Justin Herbert as he, continues to get healthy himself?
I can see the reasoning for both ways. Do I think that they're going to make a move? I personally do not, because Tom Telesco, he has been with this team. This is his 10th year, right? And he has never in season traded for a player. He's done trades where they've given somebody and he's gotten picks, but they've never traded for a player. I think it was very uncharacteristic of the Chargers this offseason to go out and make the huge trade for Khalil Mack. This team, again, I'm new here, but it doesn't seem like that's very much the Chargers to do an in-season trade. I think also you have to weigh the pros and cons. And, we're seeing these big trades like 49ers. They just got Christian McCaffrey, right? That was kind of like their last piece to the puzzle. And then we saw last year with the Rams, Von Miller, that last piece to the puzzle. So if I'm Tom and if I'm Dean and I'm looking at this team, I'm thinking, okay, are we a Super Bowl contending team? And is it worth it to go out there and get that last piece? And to me, I think there's too many pieces that you would need to get that it wouldn't make sense to just go out and get a splash receiver or go out and get a splash edge rusher, because I still think there's problems here that are not going to be addressed until the offseason. I understand the reasoning why, right? Especially at the receiver position, they have no threats, no speedy threats. It's like Jalen Guyton goes down, Mike Williams is now hurt, Keenan Allen, he's still not a super speedy guy. It would make total sense to go out there and get an Elijah Moore, but I don't think the Jets are going to let him go. But I personally if history repeats itself, I don't see Tom Telesco doing it.
No, I got you.
I could be wrong.
No, I don't think that they're going to either, as much as I would love them to.
Right.
I agree about Elijah Moore. A lot of Chargers fans want DJ Moore. That's just not even feasible at this point,
Panthers
given
are
his
not gonna give up
contract.
DJ Moore.
Also, that you would know if you spent some time with that team. So, DJ Moore, I just people think the cap is a myth, right? But it's not that much of a myth. It's not at three $20 million $20 million receivers to one team. So if there is one, I've always said this, it's going to be like a smaller, like Marquez Callaway is out there. Maybe there's a chance there, but that's it. That's all that I see personally.
Yeah, I just don't, it doesn't make enough sense, right? Because there's still these issues. You're still out your left tackle, as much as we don't think that's that big of a deal. It really is. Jamari Sawyer has played well, but it's not Rashawn Slater. And what are you going to go out and get a new left tackle? No. Are you going to get I think too, if you go and spend a lot of money on an edge or work out a trade to get a really good edge that's going to make a big difference. Well, what are you going to do when Joey Bosa potentially comes back in 3-4 weeks? And now you have 3 guys that you have to pay. I don't know. I don't think it's hard because there are so many guys that are injured that have the potential to come back, right? So it's really hard to predict what this team is going to look like the second half of the season, because what if Joey Bosa comes back and he's great? What if Mike Williams comes back and is, fine? When we forget that Justin Herbert is still dealing with a fractured rib cartilage. And I do think it's impacting him more than he leads us on to believe. What is that going to, and also, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Tight end. Oh my God.
Donald Parham.
Yeah, Donald. I was like, Robert. Yeah. Donald Parham. He barely got a chance in that game before he got hurt.
They really miss him too.
I want to see what he is able to do too.
Yeah, all of these injuries, right? They have, a certain amount of IR spots that they can use to designate players to come back too. So, that's going to be something to watch with, Mike Williams and all these guys. I want to get your thoughts here also on the run defense, because, to me, it looks better on a play-to-play basis, right? But all these big plays just keep on happening. Yeah. And Sebastian Joseph Day was asked about it, and he mentioned just playing connected football and having that connective tissue. What do you make of the run defense, right? Because we as fans, we all see, the contracts to Sebastian and Austin Johnson and Khalil Mack being traded. So what do you make of the run defense? Is it something that we can expect to get better? Or do you think that they're going to continue to have these kind of same issues every single week? They play the Falcons after the bye, who have one of the best run offenses in the league right now. So what's your thought process here with the run defense?
I would like to see it get better. I think Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day are doing a really good job, and I think they're not getting as much credit as to how much they're helping. I will agree with you. It's these big explosive plays that make the stats kind of unbalanced. Mm-hmm. What they need to do is figure out how to limit those. What was it, a 74-yard run on Sunday? And, they've had some 75s and 50s, and it's always this one big play where it's people are missing their assignments. I was actually talking to Kyle Van Noy, and I was asking him how comfortable he's feeling in the different positions he's playing. And he was like, there is still some growth, and he feels like with more repetition, he's getting more comfortable. So I think too, it's just, I don't know, if I buy into this, but these guys, some of them aren't playing in the preseason, and how much time does it take to really gel and get used to each other and figure out, okay, I know he's here, I got to move here, and just kind of work, like Sebastian Joe was saying, Joseph Day, as a cohesive unit. So I think as the season progresses, it'll get better. Yes. I don't know why it would get worse.
I would hope not. It doesn't get worse.
I don't know.
Granted, all these injuries keep piling up. It probably it could. So
especially when Joey comes back, it's got to get better.
It was cruel. It was so cruel, to see Khalil and Joey and what they were doing in the first couple games, and then
I know it was
Joey
so
gets
fun.
injured.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And So I think ultimately, like, the pass defense has been good, but they just have to continue to play, learn how to play assignment sound football, and I think they should be relatively fine back there. So,
And I think too, with this offense, if you are having your defense out there so often and you're
yeah,
getting behind early in these games, then I think that adds to like the adrenaline or the missed opportunities that's happening on defense, because you're kind of like, whether they admit it or not, I think you're thinking that in your head. So if this offense can get out to a comfortable lead, I think maybe it'll help relax the defense.
yeah, that's a huge point that nobody's really talking about. I mean, this defense is kind of a bend but don't break defense, and when you're
Yeah,
out there for as long as they have been, it gets a lot harder to not break in these
right.
games. Well, Bridget, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time for joining me tonight. What do you have coming over the next couple weeks? I know it's the bye week, but what
Yeah.
can Chargers fans look forward to from you in the next few weeks?
Well, I'm going to Cleveland Monday night for I'll be doing the Browns
Okay.
Bengals game. I don't know if the Chargers fans have any interest in that,
There's
but
there's a pretty heated Chargers Bengals rivalry. You'd be
oh,
pretty
I don't
surprised by
really.
that.
Okay, yeah, I love that. So I guess we're rooting for the Browns then as Chargers fans. Not me, but you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be cool. And I think I'm excited. There are some cool stories. Donald Parham, I can't believe I forgot his name. I feel so bad. His face is in my head.
Happens.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I interviewed him a couple weeks ago. I love his story and his drive to get back on the field. And I kind of am just waiting to see what happens before releasing that story. So I've really, when the thing that's cool about being around a team so much is you get to know these players as people and you really start rooting for them. Like when people are like, who's your favorite team or who do you root for? It's like you root for players, right? Or
Yeah.
people that you really like. And I think he has worked so hard to get back. And that'll be a really cool story in the next couple of weeks. And I'm just excited to see after the bye week where this team is, because it's either going to be, okay, we turned a corner, everything's looking good, get a couple easy wins, Joey Bosa comes back, everything's smooth sailing, or they lose a couple and then maybe some firing happens or something's going on. Either way, it's going to be entertaining.
It's going to be an eventful second half of the season for sure. You mentioned Donald Parham too. Like, there's a lot of negativity on social media right now. I mean, there always is, right? But I mean, you look at like Donald Parham, you look at Trey Pipkins, Joshua Kelly. I mean,
Yeah. Trey
Nasir
Pipkins
Adderley.
is hurt. We forget that.
Yeah. I thought that he played pretty well on Sunday. I know he technically gave up a sack, but I
Yeah.
thought that was Justin's fault personally. But you have these cool stories. I mean, Nasir Adderley getting benched and then coming back and really kind of finding himself again. So there are these like bits and pieces of positivity if you're able to look out for them.
Yeah, you just gotta like look singular and not let your mind get distracted to all the other things going on.
I don't believe in
But hey,
curses.
you could be 0-7. I think too, it's kind of crazy when we're all talking about the Chargers. I forget that they're 4-3. They have a winning record right now. It does not feel like that, right? I think there was just so much hype that this team is going to the Super Bowl before the season started that now it's like a letdown. But you're still 4-3. I think things are going to be okay.
People are kind of tired of Brandon Staley kind of saying like, we've had to fight and scrape and claw to 4-3, but we're in a good position. And it's like, they are like, this is a chance for them to, piece some things together. And to me, like the beauty of football is that, what happens in the first half of the season can be completely irrelevant. It can make your season, or it can be something that, doesn't define you at all. So,
and you just got to get into the playoffs and then win games. Honestly, you can have a perfect record in the regular season and lose week 1 of the playoffs. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think after week 7, people probably didn't think that the Bengals were going to be a playoff team, and look what happened to them. So, not saying that the Chargers are going to be the Super Bowl team, but
Cinderella story, Chargers calling it now.
There we go. So, Chargers fans, make sure and follow Bridget on Twitter. As you can tell, really knows her stuff. Great personality. I've really enjoyed talking to you tonight, Bridget. So make sure and check out all of her work on Twitter. You can find her at Bridget Condon _. Bridget, thanks for taking the time to join me tonight.
Thank you so much. Have fun the rest of the season.
Thank you. You too.